Archaeologists found this mummy after 2,000 years, but the secret behind it terrified the world. There are things buried beneath the earth not to be forgotten, but to ensure no one ever dares to uncover them. There are tombs that, when opened, reveal something far more terrifying than bones: what remains disturbingly intact inside. There are faces that have been dead for hundreds of years, yet their expressions look as if they have just endured an unimaginable horror. And most unsettling of all, there are discoveries that even scientists find chilling, because the deeper they investigate, the less they understand what truly happened. If the past has really been laid to rest, then why does it haunt the living so deeply every time it is unearthed? Welcome to the Ancient History Channel, where secrets buried deep beneath the ground are not only told, but awakened in ways that make it impossible to look away. Today, we will trace the footsteps of archaeological discoveries that have shocked the world. Stories so unbelievable that, if turned into films, many would dismiss them as fiction. From mummies with bizarre expressions, to mysterious burial rituals, to artifacts bearing the marks of a time when humans were willing to do anything to defy death. All of it emerges in ways more real and more terrifying than you could imagine. As we dive deeper into each discovery, you'll realize that archaeology is not just about uncovering the past. It is a journey of confronting truths that modern humanity may not be ready to fully understand. Some mysteries only grow more tangled the more they are unraveled. Some truths, once revealed, make people wish they had never known them at all. So prepare yourself, because what you are about to see may change the way you look at history forever. Now, are you ready? If you are, let's begin with the very first discovery. 2,500-year-old Egyptian mummy reveals a chilling secret in an American hospital. You know, our ancient world has always been mysterious and fascinating. There are secrets that seem to have been buried by time forever, but sometimes, all it takes is opening a coffin for everything to leave people standing in stunned silence. A powerful example of this is the story of an ancient mummy over 2,500 years old named Paddy Hershef, a stone carver around 40 years old, who lived more than 2.5 millennia ago in ancient Egypt. He was discovered in a burial ground in the city of Thebes, modern-day Luxor, Egypt, on the west bank of the Nile River. No one knows exactly how he lived, what illnesses he may have suffered from, or the circumstances of his death. But one thing is certain: his body was mummified with remarkable sophistication and has endured for thousands of years. The strange journey began on April 25, 1823, when the mummy was brought to the port city of Boston, Massachusetts, by a Dutch businessman named Jacob van Lennep as a special gift to the city. It was immediately transferred to Massachusetts General Hospital, becoming one of the first Egyptian mummies ever to appear in the United States. At that time, most Americans had never seen a real mummy in person. Curiosity exploded. Everyone wanted to witness a person from the distant past. To raise funds for the hospital, visitors were charged 25 cents per viewing, and long lines of people formed just for a chance to see a body that had existed for more than 2 millennia. It didn't stop there. Due to overwhelming demand, the hospital even took the mummy on tour across several major U.S. cities, with ticket prices rising to as much as $2.50 per viewing, a significant amount of money in the 19th century. In this way, Paddy Hershef became one of the most unusual exhibition stars of his time. After gaining widespread attention, the mummy was returned to Massachusetts and remained on display for nearly 200 years, still intact inside its coffin, standing upright just as it had been originally placed. However, this very position gradually caused internal damage due to gravity, slowly degrading its structure over time. Then came a turning point. Just last week, doctors and experts at the hospital decided to remove the mummy from its coffin for deeper study. This marked the first time in nearly 2 centuries that Paddy Hershef had been freed from his familiar protective casing. And when the coffin was opened, something striking appeared: a thick layer of white salt covering the entire body, a natural result of the ancient mummification process that had lasted thousands of years. The doctors carefully used cotton pads soaked in a moisturizing solution to clean away each layer of long-accumulated salt. Slowly, with meticulous effort, a dark, rigid, but still fully intact human form began to emerge. But what shocked the research team the most was not the preservation itself. It was a completely unexpected discovery. A wooden broom handle had been found running through the mummy's skull down into the upper torso. This immediately raised a chilling question: Was this the result of an accident, or was it part of a specialized stabilization technique used by ancient Egyptian embalmers, something we still don't fully understand? At the same time, examination of the skeletal system revealed signs that the man had suffered a serious illness during childhood, which had stunted his bone development for a prolonged period. This discovery opens up even more theories about his mysterious life. Currently, the team of experts is working urgently to restore the ancient coffin and the deteriorated linen wrappings. However, all of this must be completed within just 3 days before the mummy is placed back into a vacuum-sealed glass case for long-term preservation. In the near future, Patti Herschef will be displayed at the George Walter Vincent Smith Art Museum in Springfield, Massachusetts, continuing to tell a story that has remained unsolved for over 2,500 years. Yet the biggest question still remains: was that wooden handle part of an ancient ritual? Or is it a mystery history has never been able to explain? What do you think the answer is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because who knows, your idea might just help scientists unlock the secrets of this ancient mummy. And wouldn't that be incredible? The 2,400-year-old tomb of the philosopher Aristotle. Have you ever wondered whether one of the greatest minds in human history, the philosopher Aristotle, after more than 2,300 years since his death, is truly resting where people have long believed? It sounds like a question that belongs only in textbooks, right? But the truth is, that question may have just been partially answered through a groundbreaking archaeological discovery in the ancient city of Stagira, in central Macedonia, Greece. The story begins with a long and persistent journey, 20 years of continuous excavation by Greek archaeologists. It wasn't until the Aristotle 2,400 Years World Congress, held from May 23 to May 28, 2016 in Thessaloniki, Greece, that archaeologist Kostas Sismenides officially announced a discovery that stunned the academic world, an ancient tomb they believe could be the final resting place of Aristotle. Aristotle was born in 384 BC in Stagira, Greece, and died in 322 BC in Chalcis on the island of Euboea. For centuries, Chalcis has been considered his burial site. However, this new discovery presents an entirely different possibility. Based on archaeological evidence, it is believed that the people of Stagira, his hometown, may have brought his ashes back to their city as a way of honoring their most illustrious citizen. If this is true, then history may have misunderstood his final resting place for thousands of years. The tomb was discovered right in the center of Stagira, near the Agora, the marketplace and public hub of the ancient city, at a location that overlooks the surrounding area. That alone suggests the structure was anything but ordinary. It likely held great significance. The tomb structure features a dome design built atop a mound with a marble-paved floor and has been dated to the Hellenistic period, 323 to 31 BC. Interestingly, researchers observed that the structure appeared to have been built rather hastily at first, but was later upgraded with higher quality materials, as if it had been enhanced to properly honor an extremely important figure. Outside the tomb, there is an altar and a square platform, indicating that the site may have once been used for rituals or commemorative ceremonies. The dome rises to a height of approximately 33 feet, creating a solemn and imposing space befitting a philosopher of such stature. Delving deeper into the structure, archaeologists also discovered a tower pillar in the Eastern Roman Byzantine style placed directly on the stone floor, along with a semicircular wall about 6.5 feet high surrounding the tomb. Notably, a clearly defined pathway leads directly to the structure, suggesting it was designed for visitors who came to pay their respects to Aristotle. You might be wondering, is this truly Aristotle's tomb? The answer is still under debate. However, the findings uncovered at the site make the theory highly compelling. During the excavation, the research team discovered numerous ancient pottery fragments and more than 50 coins minted during the reign of Alexander the Great, Aristotle's most famous student. These coins are not only valuable artifacts, but also serve as important chronological markers that help confirm the dating of the structure. However, the history of this tomb does not end in antiquity. Researchers have also found evidence that the structure was once destroyed by the Byzantines, who later built a square tower on top of it, drastically altering its original form. This only deepens the mystery. Why would such an important commemorative structure be destroyed? And what caused it to be forgotten for centuries before being rediscovered? At present, archaeologists are continuing their investigations to determine the true identity of this tomb. But regardless of the final conclusion, the discovery in Stagira, Greece, has already opened an entirely new chapter in our understanding of Aristotle's life and legacy. Perhaps the most thought-provoking question now is not just, is this really Aristotle's tomb? But rather, how many other historical secrets are still lying beneath the ground, waiting to be uncovered? Just like this one. 2,000-year-old treasure buried inside a fortress in Crimea. Some stories in history are not written in ink, but carved by fear, desperation, and loyalty, carried through to the very end. And the treasure recently discovered at an ancient fortress in Artesian, on the Crimean Peninsula, now part of Ukraine, is one such story. This discovery was announced by archaeologists in a report published in the journal Ancient Civilizations from Scythia to Siberia, after many years of excavation at the fortress site. What makes it remarkable is that what they uncovered was not just a collection of artifacts, but the remnants of a tragedy that took place nearly 2,000 years ago, when an entire community faced invasion by the Roman army. Inside the ancient fortress, which spans roughly 3.2 acres, researchers discovered two buried treasure hoards, along with more than 200 bronze coins, numerous pieces of jewelry made of gold, silver, and bronze, and even ancient glass vessels hidden deep beneath layers of soil and stone. According to Professor Nikolai Vinokurov of the Moscow State Pedagogical University in Russia, the Artesian fortress was subjected to a fierce Roman assault at the time. Wealthy residents, along with local inhabitants, chose to hide their valuables within the fortress walls, hoping that no matter what happened, their wealth would not be looted. But reality turned out to be far more brutal. At that time, the Bosporan kingdom, of which Artesian was a part, was caught in a civil war between two brothers, Mithridates VIII, who sought independence from Roman control, and Codus I, who aligned himself with the increasingly powerful Roman Empire. In the end, Rome intervened by sending troops to support Codus I, helping him seize control of the Bosporan capital. As a result, settlements loyal to Mithridates, including Artesian, were attacked and burned to the ground. In that moment of life and death, the people of Artesian gathered inside the fortress, not only to protect one another, but perhaps also to await an inevitable fate. What deeply unsettled archaeologists is a striking hypothesis, that these treasures were not merely hidden possessions, but may have been part of a collective funerary ritual, a way of preparing for death when they realized there was no escape. Supporting this chilling idea is an intriguing detail. Each buried hoard contained exactly 55 coins minted by Mithridates VIII. This precise number has sparked ongoing debate among researchers. Is it a coincidence, or does it represent a ritual number with special meaning to the community at that time? What remains in the fortress is not only wealth and jewelry, but also clear traces of ancient Greek culture. Although Artesian lies nearly 620 miles from Greece, its inhabitants preserved Greek customs, lifestyle, and artistic traditions across generations. Among the artifacts, archaeologists found a silver brooch engraved with the image of Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love. There were also gold rings set with gemstones, intricately carved with figures of Nemesis, the goddess of justice, and Tyche, the goddess of fortune. These details reveal that the spiritual life of the people of Artesian remained deeply connected to the ancient Greek world. As excavations expanded into the burned areas, the research team uncovered further evidence that this had once been a thriving community, one that was completely destroyed following the Roman attack around 45 AD. Later, after Codus I was installed as king by Rome, the area was rebuilt. However, the treasures of the former residents remained buried underground forever, silent witnesses to the fall of a community caught in the tides of power, until the day archaeologists finally unearthed them and brought their story back into the light. The Screaming Mummy of Egypt, a 3,000-year-old mystery in Tomb DB32, that still haunts the world. There are faces from the past that, once seen, can never be forgotten. And among them, perhaps the most haunting is the so-called Screaming Mummy, a mystery discovered deep within an ancient tomb at Deir el-Bahri, about 300 miles south of Cairo, Egypt. The story began in 1881, when archaeologists uncovered a tomb known as DB320 at the site, a hidden chamber buried deep underground, as if deliberately concealed from the outside world. Inside, they found around 40 ancient mummies, all of which had been relocated from tombs in the Valley of the Kings to protect them from widespread grave robbing in ancient times. But among dozens of mummies belonging to famous pharaohs and royal figures, one case made everyone pause longer than usual. An unidentified mummy placed at the end of a steep shaft approximately 46 feet deep, with no identifying marks on its coffin. At the time, however, this individual was largely overlooked, overshadowed by the presence of legendary figures such as Pharaoh Ramses II, Seti I, and Thutmose III, names far too prominent in ancient Egyptian history. According to Egyptologist Dylan Bickerstaff, researchers at the time focused primarily on these well-known royal mummies, leaving this one almost forgotten for years. It wasn't until 5 years later, in 1886, that they returned to examine the mummy more closely. When the wrappings were finally removed, the researchers were stunned. The face inside did not resemble someone peacefully at rest. It looked as if the person were screaming in unbearable agony. The mouth was open, the facial muscles frozen in an expression of terror so intense it sent chills down the spine. From that moment on, the name Screaming Mummy was born. Unfortunately, because there was no name or inscription on the coffin, scientists could only refer to him as Unknown Man E, and the mummy was eventually moved to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo for preservation. Do you know what makes this story even more unsettling? It's the burial context. The mummies in tomb DB320 are believed to have been moved there during the late Ramesside period, when tomb robbery was rampant in ancient Egypt. To protect royal remains, high-ranking priests secretly relocated dozens of mummies to this remote location, bringing along burial goods while still attempting to preserve each individual's identity. In ancient Egyptian belief, a person who died without a name could not pass into the afterlife. Because of this, some theories suggest that Unknown Man E may have been cursed, condemned to remain forever unrecognized, even in death. It wasn't until 2008 that a research team, supported by the National Geographic Channel, revisited the mystery. They proposed 3 main theories regarding the mummy's identity. The first suggested he was an Egyptian official who had been buried improperly. His body may have been treated with quicklime and covered with animal skins, possibly sheep or goat hides. In ancient Egyptian culture, these animals were considered impure, and covering a body with their skins was believed to prevent the soul from entering the afterlife. However, this theory was quickly dismissed, as the mummy was found among royal individuals. The second theory proposed that he was a foreign prince who died in Egypt and could not be returned to his homeland. But this also failed to explain the complete absence of any identifying information on the coffin. Then came a crucial breakthrough through CT scanning. Unknown Man E was, in fact, Egyptian, and his skull features bore strong resemblance to royal lineage. From there, researchers began to consider the most shocking theory, that he may have been Prince Pentawere, the son of Pharaoh Ramses III, who was accused of participating in a plot to assassinate his own father. According to ancient papyrus records, around the 12th century BC, Queen Tiye and her son Pentawere were involved in a conspiracy to kill the king. When the plot was discovered, those involved were executed or forced to commit suicide by poison. What's especially chilling is that Pentaware's punishment may not have been limited to death. It may have included the complete erasure of his identity. This could explain why the mummy bears no name at all, as if the punishment was meant to last for eternity. And what about that screaming face? Archaeologists believe it is not an expression of pain at the moment of death, but rather the result of the body collapsing backward, causing the facial muscles to lock into that terrifying position. Even so, the mystery is far from over. Scientists are planning further DNA analysis to determine whether Unknown Man E truly was the son of Ramses III. Until then, the biggest question still lingers. Is this a story of guilt or a tragedy buried beneath the sands of Egypt for thousands of years? 300-year-old mother and child mummy discovered beneath a church crypt in Hungary. Have you ever imagined that a simple renovation inside an old church could uncover an entire world forgotten for centuries? If not, let's travel back to the beginning of 1994. That year, during restoration work at Vak Church in the city of Vak, Hungary, workers unexpectedly discovered a sealed entrance leading down into a crypt that had been hidden for centuries. They immediately reported it, and an archaeological team was sent to the site. As the archaeologists cleared away layers of dirt and debris, a chilling secret gradually emerged. Beneath the church lay a vast crypt containing around 250 naturally mummified bodies, resting silently in the darkness for more than 300 years. But among those hundreds of mummies, one discovery drew particular attention from scientists, a story not just about death, but about motherhood frozen in time. It was the mummified remains of a 38-year-old woman named Veronica Skripets and her infant son, about 1 year old, found lying near each other in the same underground crypt beneath the church. According to initial studies, both likely died from tuberculosis, a disease that once ravaged Europe at a time when medicine was still extremely primitive. There were no antibiotics, no vaccines. Illnesses that seem manageable today could claim entire families in a short period. This reality led anthropologist Ildikó Szikosi of Hungary to state plainly that child mortality rates at the time were extraordinarily high, and what remains in the crypt serves as clear evidence of an era when medical science had not yet advanced. But the story doesn't end there. Recently, doctors and experts from the Global Medical Center of Orange County in Santa Ana, California, have planned a special study, a virtual autopsy using CT scanning technology on the two mummies. According to CT research specialist Jim Sutherland, the scanning process can reveal details invisible to the naked eye. He noted that the mother's body remains remarkably intact from head to toe, while the child's remains show some small bone fragments that have deteriorated over time. This discovery has left scientists both curious and cautious, as they still cannot fully predict what the scan data might reveal. Sutherland himself admitted that the experience feels like lifting the veil on a story that has never been told. Although the initial hypothesis suggests the mother may have died from tuberculosis, only after completing the CT analysis will researchers be able to confirm the exact cause of death and better understand what happened during the final days of both mother and child. What makes this story so remarkable is not just the number of mummies found in the crypt, around 250 bodies, but the fact that they were preserved naturally, as if time itself had frozen everything beneath the church in Vach, Hungary. And within that frozen space, the image of a mother lying beside her young child for more than 3 centuries is something that deeply moves anyone who hears it. This is not a story of power or war, but a deeply human tragedy, the loss of ordinary lives in a time when medicine could not save them. At present, the CT scan results are expected to be released by the end of next month, and the scientific community is waiting for each piece of data as if listening to a voice from the past. So let's wait and see what truly happened to this mother and child, whose story has remained hidden for over 300 years. Mummified girl holding an intact rose in her coffin for 145 years. Some discoveries don't just surprise people, they leave them silent for a few seconds, overwhelmed by emotions that are hard to put into words. The story of a young girl found after 145 years beneath the ground in San Francisco, California, United States, is one of those cases. It all began on May 8th, when a group of workers were doing landscaping in the yard of an ordinary home owned by Erica Carner. While digging beneath the concrete floor of the garage, they struck a strange, hard object. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a coffin about 3.3 feet long, made of lead and copper. News quickly reached archaeologists, who arrived at the scene and immediately began excavation. When the archaeologists opened the glass lid of the coffin, everyone was stunned. Inside lay the body of a little girl, about 3 years old, dressed in a pure white gown. Her blonde hair was still perfectly preserved, and most remarkably, she was still holding a red rose in her hands. Her skin, her hair, even the flower, could still be clearly seen through the glass. It was a scene both beautiful and haunting, as if time had somehow frozen at the exact moment she was laid to rest. According to researchers, the girl may have originally been buried at the Oddfellows Cemetery, once a large cemetery in San Francisco. However, in 1890, local authorities decided to close the cemetery to redevelop the area. By the 1920s, around 180,000 sets of remains had been relocated elsewhere, yet it seems that not all were moved. This little girl may have been one of those left behind, resting quietly underground for over a century, completely unknown. What makes the story even more remarkable is the way she was buried. The girl wore a long white dress, her hair adorned with lavender flowers, and her coffin was lined with purple velvet. Everything suggests that she was deeply loved and given a respectful burial by her family. Tragically, however, her identity has been completely lost to time. No one knows who she was, where her family came from, or what caused her death at just 3 years old. One of Carner's 2 children, after hearing the story, gave her the name Miranda, a way to ensure she would no longer remain an anonymous soul. From that moment on, an unexpected responsibility fell upon the homeowner herself, Erica Carner. Despite having no connection to the girl, she was required to handle the entire situation, including obtaining a death certificate and arranging for reburial. The cost reached $10,000, a significant amount, and it left Carner understandably frustrated. She argued that the cemetery relocation had been the city's decision over a century ago, and that they should be responsible for what had been left behind. Not stopping there, she contacted the organization Garden of Innocence, a group dedicated to providing proper burials for unidentified children. Representatives from the organization hoped to determine the girl's true identity using modern methods before reinterring her at Greenlawn Cemetery in Colma, California, United States, this coming summer. You see, this story is not just a sleuthy archaeological discovery, it is also a deeply meaningful reminder. Sometimes, right beneath our feet, under layers of seemingly lifeless concrete, there may exist stories that have never been told. So if it were you, if one day you discovered a secret like this in your own home, would you choose to forget it? Or help bring that story back to life once more? Or is there an even more humane way to handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can hear your perspective. 1. 1,000-year-old child mummy discovered amid modern construction in Peru. Imagine this. On an ordinary day, as workers prepare to build a new road, something unexpected emerges beneath the soil. The remains of a child who lived more than 1,000 years ago. Would you believe it? It may sound unbelievable, but this is a completely real story that recently took place at the Puruchuco Archaeological site in Lima, Peru. The discovery happened during a routine land survey conducted by archaeologists in support of a government construction project. In what seemed like a very ordinary process, they unexpectedly uncovered the mummy of a child dating back over a millennium from a time before the Inca Empire. What's remarkable is that Puruchuco is not an unfamiliar site. It is considered the largest Inca-era cemetery ever excavated in Peru. Yet, after more than 60 years of research, archaeologists have only explored about 10% of the site, an astonishing figure when you think about how much still lies hidden beneath the ground. Even within that small portion, around 2,000 mummies have already been discovered, along with countless artifacts such as pottery, hundreds of finely woven textiles, and coins made of copper, silver, and even gold. In other words, nearly every layer of soil at Puruchuco has a story from the past waiting to be told. Returning to this particular discovery, the child's mummy was not found alone. It was part of a burial complex containing 26 graves where both adults and children had been laid to rest. In fact, archaeologists uncovered dozens of additional mummies within the same area. According to archaeologist Guillermo Koch, a member of the research team, approximately 40 mummies have been excavated from this site so far, and that number is expected to continue rising in the near future. It's striking how, the deeper they dig, the more vividly the past reveals itself. What truly astonished scientists is the exceptional state of preservation of these mummies. Despite being thousands of years old, many of the bodies have retained their original form. In fact, in early 2015, a mummy discovered in Peru still had one eye intact, as if time had never touched it. Details like these make the research incredibly valuable, offering authentic insights into the lives, health, and culture of ancient people. The child's mummy from this discovery was quickly transferred to a museum immediately after excavation to ensure proper preservation and to support further in-depth study. Looking at the bigger picture, Peru in recent years has become something of a living treasure trove for archaeology. Thousands of mummies have been uncovered, each one a piece of history. Among the most famous is the Juanita Ice Maiden, a young girl preserved in ice atop a mountain, remaining remarkably intact after hundreds of years. Discoveries like these have not only shocked the scientific community, but have also prompted the world to reevaluate ancient civilizations in South America. Returning to the child found at Puruchuco, what lingers in people's minds is not just the fact that the mummy is over 1,000 years old, but the questions it raises. What kind of world did this child live in? What was their community like? And what caused such a young life to end so early? To this day, scientists have not fully answered these questions. But there is hope that with modern techniques, they will soon uncover the truth behind this mysterious child. 500-year-old mummified woman discovered in South Korea. You know, the world of archaeology is fascinating. Some discoveries don't shock people with gold or treasure, but instead spark curiosity through the most ordinary details. This time, in the city of Osan, about 34 miles south of Seoul, a mummified woman over 500 years old was discovered, along with what may have been the most important item to her in life, a handbag. The discovery took place early last month during the construction of an industrial complex. While working on the site, laborers accidentally uncovered an ancient burial area. Soon after, a team of scholars and researchers from the Seokyung Institute of Cultural Heritage was called in to conduct an excavation. Beneath what seemed like lifeless layers of soil and stone, they found a wooden coffin that had been preserved almost perfectly. Inside lay the body of a woman approximately 5 feet 1 inch tall, wrapped in multiple layers of burial cloth, resting as if she had only just been laid to rest. What particularly caught the researchers' attention was not only the exceptional preservation of the mummy, but also a name plaque on the coffin, a small detail with significant meaning. It indicated the official rank of the woman's husband within the government, leading experts to believe that she was likely the wife of a high-ranking official during the Joseon dynasty. Based on her clothing and hairstyle, researchers further determined that she lived around the 16th century, during the early period of the Joseon dynasty, 1392 to 1910, a crucial era in Korean history. When people think of mummies, they often picture ancient Egypt. However, Korea had its own unique method of preserving bodies. Instead of removing internal organs like the Egyptians, people during the Joseon period used tightly sealed coffins coated with lime plaster, creating a near-airtight environment that naturally preserved the body over time. As a result, this woman's mummy not only retains its external form, but also preserves all internal organs, an incredibly valuable resource for scientists studying health conditions and causes of death. Among the burial items, one detail stands out and gives pause: a handbag. While many individuals are buried with jewelry, gold, or luxurious items, for this woman, the handbag seemed to be what she chose to carry into the afterlife. Strange, isn't it? In addition, archaeologists discovered a ceramic jar, a comb, and several hairpins, along with traditional Joseon-era garments that were nearly perfectly preserved. These items not only reflect her social status, but also provide valuable insight into the lifestyle, habits, and culture of noble women of that time. According to excavation team leader Kim Woo-rim, finding such a well-preserved and carefully arranged burial is extremely rare. He noted that this discovery could help scientists better understand life during the early days of the Joseon dynasty. Initial observations suggest that the woman may have died from a chronic illness, based on her thin physique and gaunt facial features. However, more detailed studies are still underway to reach a definitive conclusion. Researcher John Sung-ho from the Seokyung Institute also stated that this discovery aligns perfectly with Joseon burial customs and serves as clear evidence of how ancient Koreans treated the deceased. Interestingly, although Korean mummies are not as widely known as Egyptian ones, they offer a unique advantage. Their internal structures remain intact, allowing scientists to conduct in-depth analyses that are not possible elsewhere. So, the story of this 500-year-old woman is more than just an archaeological discovery. It is like a slice of history, where every object, every small detail, is quietly trying to tell the story of a life that once existed. And that truly is no exaggeration. An 18-week-old fetal mummy in England that kept scientists awake at night. When we hear the word mummy, we usually think of powerful pharaohs or famous royal figures. But did you know there is a very special case, so small it could fit in the palm of your hand, that has puzzled scientists for years? It is considered the youngest mummy in the world, currently housed at the Fitzwilliam Museum. Its story began long before that, when archaeologists were excavating at Giza, a land famous for its pyramids and ancient tombs. It was there that they discovered a tiny coffin, which was later transported to England and donated to the museum in 1907. The coffin is only about 17.3 inches long and made of cedar wood. What's remarkable is that it is far from crude. In fact, it is a perfect miniature version of coffins used during the late period of ancient Egypt, around 664 to 525 BC. Despite thousands of years having passed, the outer surface still bears intricate carvings, suggesting that the individual inside was not an ordinary case. Just imagine a coffin that small yet crafted with such care. Who could possibly be inside? Surely someone of great importance, right? However, when scientists conducted deeper studies using X-rays and CT scans, the truth was astonishing. Inside was not an adult, nor even a child in the usual sense, but a fetus. Yes, a life that had not yet been born. Analysis showed that the fetus's skull was still soft, completely consistent with an early stage of development. However, the fingers and toes were already clearly formed, and the arms were positioned neatly across the chest, following the ritual posture commonly used in ancient Egyptian mummification practices. Based on bone measurements, scientists determined that the fetus was approximately 18 weeks old. To this day, it is considered the youngest mummy ever discovered in human history. What truly raises questions is how the body was treated. After being wrapped in multiple layers of thick linen, molten black resin was poured into the coffin, filling all empty spaces before it was sealed shut. This was not a simple process. It was deliberate, calculated, and ritualistic. So the question is, why would a fetus be mummified with such care? Researchers believe it is very possible that the mother suffered a miscarriage and the family chose to carry out a full burial ritual for the unborn child. In ancient Egyptian belief, death was not the end, but a transition to another world. And to enter that world, every soul needed to be acknowledged and respected. Of course, researchers say this because this is not the only case. Previously, in the tomb of Tutankhamun, archaeologists also discovered two other fetal mummies, estimated to be about 25 and 37 weeks old. These cases reinforce one powerful idea. The ancient Egyptians did not measure the value of life by age. Whether a king or an unborn child, all were treated with the same dignity and reverence. At present, the exact cause that prevented this 18-week-old fetus from developing further remains unknown. But what truly troubles scientists is not just the death, it is how people of that time faced loss. A tiny coffin, a complete ritual, meticulous care in every detail, all for a life that never even had the chance to cry. What does that tell us? To me, among the thousands of mummies discovered around the world, this may be the smallest, but it carries one of the greatest messages. No matter the era, humans have always found ways to hold on to what they love, even when it existed for only the briefest moment. Greek mummy in a lead coffin reveals a little-known mummification practice. Amid the familiar stories of Egyptian mummies, there is a lesser-known discovery that has prompted scientists to rethink history itself. The finding of a mummified woman from ancient Greece, preserved in a way few would have expected, deep beneath the ground in Thessaloniki. The story began in 1962, when archaeologists were excavating an ancient cemetery on the eastern outskirts of the city, an area used for burial rituals from the Hellenistic to the Byzantine periods. During the dig, they uncovered a unique structure, a stone coffin. But even more unusual was what lay inside it, a second coffin made of lead. At that moment, it was clear this was no ordinary grave. And indeed, when the lead coffin was opened for the first time, a remarkably well-preserved body was revealed. It belonged to a middle-aged woman, dating to around 300 AD, during the period when the Roman Empire ruled over Greek lands. According to the research team, led by Frank Rulli from the University of Zurich, the body was not preserved by environmental conditions alone. It showed clear signs of deliberate mummification. Through a series of modern analyses, including electron microscopy, mass spectrometry, and chromatography, scientists discovered that the body had been treated with aromatic resins, oils, and various spices. These substances helped preserve portions of soft tissue, something extremely rare in mummies outside of Egypt. Notably, although the body had dried and become fragile over time, identifiable features such as eyelashes, hair, arm muscles, and even blood cells were still present. Small details like these serve as a living archive, helping scientists better understand ancient humans. The body was also wrapped in purple silk embroidered with gold thread, an extremely expensive material at the time. This suggests that the woman was not an ordinary individual, but likely belonged to the aristocracy or held a high social status. Skeletal analysis indicates that she was between 50 and 60 years old, a relatively advanced age for ancient times. Her body was placed on a wooden platform inside the lead coffin, wrapped in wool and cotton. She measured about 5 feet in height and had a relatively broad build. Everything points to a carefully prepared journey into the afterlife. Another detail that has drawn particular attention is the lead coffin itself. While it cannot be definitively confirmed, Many researchers believe the lead casing may have created a sealed environment that slowed decomposition. However, whether the use of lead was intentional or merely coincidental remains an open question. According to researcher Christina Papagiorgopoulou, also from the University of Zurich, there had previously been almost no direct evidence that ancient Greeks actually used substances like resins or oils for mummification. Such practices were only mentioned in historical writings by figures like Homer and Herodotus. This discovery, therefore, stands as the first tangible proof that mummification was not exclusive to Egypt. It also existed, albeit rarely, in the Greco-Roman world. Historically, there have been special cases, such as Alexander the Great, who was believed to have been preserved with beeswax after his death. However, such accounts were largely anecdotal and had never been clearly confirmed through archaeology, until this mummy came to light. Today, the woman's remains are preserved at the Archaeological Museum of Thessaloniki, where they have become one of the key subjects in the Swiss Mummy Project, a research initiative focused on understanding life, death, and the transformation of the human body after death using non-invasive methods. As you can see, this story is more than just an archaeological discovery. It opens an entirely new perspective. That in the ancient world, whether in Egypt or Greece, people shared a common desire to preserve a part of their existence beyond time. To us today, this might seem almost unbelievable, but to them, it was something far more profound. My friends, after everything we've just witnessed, perhaps the most frightening thing isn't the mummies, the tombs, or the ancient artifacts. It's the feeling we get when we realize that the past has never truly disappeared. It's still there, buried deep beneath the ground, waiting for the day it is uncovered and its stories are told. Stories not everyone is ready to hear. Each discovery is a piece of history, but the more pieces we put together, the more difficult the picture becomes to understand. Some mysteries can be explained, but others may remain forever beyond human reach. Don't you feel that too? And if one day you found yourself standing before those secrets, would you keep digging deeper, or would you turn away and let them rest forever? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any other fascinating discoveries. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.